Let us start assembling this bad boy. We're gonna assemble it on the counter first before we start putting everything together underneath the sink. This is cool. So this little fitting here that I didn't know what it does is actually a leak stop valve. And these little tablets here that I didn't know what they do, I thought they were gonna be sanitation tablets. They're not. This is a fabric that expands when it gets really wet. You drop this tablet down into here, and when you close this and then screw this to the bottom of the cabinet, if you have water running around on the bottom of your cabinet, it gets wet on that tablet and swells that fabric up. It pushes this up and out the top and forces the incoming supply line to shut off. They even have one that's, so this is a 5-stage unit. They even have one that's a 7-stage unit that uses UV light. NU Aqua's got it going on, man. This is great. Okay. One other thing that I'm gonna try and figure out here, we have one filter assembly that doesn't quite have a spot for anything. I'm betting it goes inside this canister. We've taken the canister out of the bracketry, pop that off, and of course, it does go inside there. Well, this is your RO membrane, okay. So it's gonna be a singular directional thing to where this pops down into there. Now, I'm not gonna do it just yet because there may be a flushing that we have to do with this or something else, so I am gonna lean on the instructions for that, but this is what all guys do, right? They try to figure it out without the instructions, and then they end up digging the instructions out of the trash. Okay, first thing we're gonna do is put the reverse osmosis filter membrane to the canister. This larger canister here is where this membrane goes, and it can only go in one way. It's pushed all the way home. We'll put this back on there. We wanna make sure we get these in the right order. We've got an O-ring that goes down inside the canister there. Most of these seals are gonna be O-ring seals. Our diagram here shows us the order at which the filters go in. So we're just gonna follow that diagram and put them in that order. It's not rocket surgery, it's plumbing. This is just a spun wound fabric filter. Goes in the clear canister so you can actually see it. So now, we will start getting these bad boys screwed up and onto here. Again, not crazy, pretty simple. And they all seal with O-rings. Anything that seals with an O-ring, you don't have to get like muscle tight. You just gotta get it really, really snug. Water pressure will essentially tighten these things up really well over time. That's what this filter wrench is for though, is you can take this filter wrench and put it down underneath there and then give it an extra little snugging just to make sure that you're good and tight. And that's all it takes. I'm gonna guess this other end was for this side here. I was able to get that one with my hands, so we don't need that. So now we can start assembling the rest of our items here. To do that, let's get this guy cut apart. Plenty of tubing. One of the trickiest parts about installing these is figuring out how to fit everything underneath your sink. My old filter assembly was installed on the right side of my sink. The new filter assembly is a little bit bigger. We're a 5 filter assembly instead of a 3, and the filter canisters are a little bit larger, so the new filter assembly is actually gonna get installed on the left side of my sink. Everything on top of here is color-coded. I kinda want you to see that and pay attention to it here. Let's install these 2 inlet and outlet pieces real quick like. We're gonna take the supplied Teflon tape. It's pretty cool, they give you Teflon tape for this. Now anytime you're using Teflon tape on O-ring fittings, you only wanna go about 3 wraps, and you want to make sure the Teflon does not cover the O-ring. And I also, anytime I'm applying Teflon tape on anything, I apply it in the direction that you're gonna turn the fitting into the device. So that way, as you're screwing the fitting in, it doesn't want to unravel your Teflon tape. The way that I wrapped it in there, by screwing this into the fitting, it actually keeps winding the Teflon tape. So one of these are both the same pieces. One of them goes here on the in connection, and then this one goes on the out connection. So far, I'm very impressed with everything that's included in this kit. One other thing, this red hose actually goes into this out right here. And when you're pushing these in, there is an O-ring that sits down inside this fitting, and you wanna make sure you push it well past that O-ring. When you first push it in, you're gonna feel it touch the O-ring. So I push it in, and right there it touches the O-ring. It's not a bad idea to put a Sharpie mark on there. And so now, there it is touching the O-ring. That's not pushed in all the way. I'd wanna push it in even farther, and you'll feel it really bottom out. But mainly, I can't see my Sharpie mark anymore. Okay, so other fittings that we have here, if you'll notice, these four that I'm talking about here, these were already factory installed, but still, they're color coded. We have a red tube and a red collar, a red tube and a red collar. Here we have a yellow collar, so therefore it's got a yellow tube. Same here, yellow collar, yellow tube. So that helps understand what hoses go where. This is our drain for the thing. Black tube, black collar. So we'll make sure that gets pushed home all the way. I'm gonna double check that one just to make sure. Good. Not a bad idea to double check all the factory connections. These were put together by a human in the factory. Everybody's got bad days, so not a bad idea to check. Okay, so now we've got our black drain tube already connected. We have our yellow tube. This yellow tube is actually gonna end up going to this reservoir over here. But we want to make sure, again, on here, I wasn't able to see this on the black one, but here for the yellow one, I'm going to put a Sharpie mark on there and prove that, okay, that is just touching the O-ring. So now we got to make the Sharpie mark disappear, push it all the way in there. So the yellow one is going to end up going to this canister once everything is up underneath there. We got two hoses left. We got two ports left. Obviously, red is going to go to this red port here. The two pieces that we had to install in this both had red collars. That's because one of them, the factory installed red tube, goes into this one. The other red tube goes into this one. Again, we're gonna put our Sharpie mark on there and then bury it. Okay, this blue one that goes out goes to the faucet. It's gonna look a little crazy having all these hoses hanging off of it for a minute. If you want to like wrap them up and put them out of your way, I'm gonna take them all and kind of tuck them in front of it here. The hardest part about these things is getting them, like finding space for them under your cabinet. We're really cramped for space, so I wanted to make sure I got all of those installed ahead of time. We got one more thing to install. This is our bladder tank. We need to put some Teflon tape on top of here. I'm gonna be screwing the fitting on this direction, so I want my tape going on in that direction. And then you just pull it to break it. Anytime you're screwing a plastic fitting onto a metal fitting, you do want to be careful. You don't want to force it. You also don't want to over tighten it. Plastic on the outside of metal, if you were to get this too tight, you'll crack the plastic. It's very easy to do. I've seen it happen time and time again. So you just want it to be on there tight enough to not leak. One way that you can do that if you're worried about cracking it, once this is all installed, I can still spin this while I'm tightening this. And if we have to come back and tighten it up later because it's trying to leak on us, we can totally do that. This blue line goes up to our faucet, and we actually want to install it on the bottom of the faucet first. And then once everything is in, we'll make the connection down here. It's a lot easier to install this on the bottom of the faucet without anything connected to the other end. So these push lock fittings, to get them apart, you pull out this little retainer fitting that's in there. You can take a crescent wrench or anything and you use it to push down this collar. That unlocks the little gripper teeth that are in there. So you push that collar down and the tube comes right out. It's super easy. If you just pull on it, it won't come out. So, in fact, like I can show you here, if I pull on that one, it won't come out. I would have to pull the retainer thing out and push the collar down. Now, we want to make sure that we get our retainer back underneath there. Now we're ready to go on the other end once we get that installed. But for now, I'll show you how this is going on. This nut here screws on to the bottom of the faucet. Okay, so we want to put that on first. The very next thing we want to put on is, this is called a polyferrule. And it's a little, it fits just outside the piping. It's kind of a diamond shaped collar that goes around the piping. And then we have this little fitting here, and this is a stiffener. and it's plastic. A lot of times stiffeners are usually metal, but anytime we're doing anything with reverse osmosis filtered water, we're taking out a lot of metallic impurities from the water. So you wouldn't want metal fittings installed anywhere in the thing because that's gonna put impurities right back in the water. So that's why all of these fittings are push lock fittings and they're plastic fittings, is because we're trying to keep all the impurities out. I'm gonna jump up underneath the sink and tighten this up on there real quick, and then we can start installing everything else.